Welcome, everybody. I'm really excited to be here with Sherry Dillard today. Sherry is an internationally renowned psychic medium, intuitive, and best-selling author of 11 books, including Discover Your Psychic Type and You Are Psychic, which Sherry actually was in the bookstore yesterday, 2 days ago, and it was right on the front shelf. I was like, hey, I'm going to be talking with her in a couple of days. It's amazing. So welcome. Actually, let me finish your bio. So Sherry's been a professional psychic and medium for over 35 years and offers courses in psychic and medium development and healing with your loved ones on the other side. And I've been watching your interviews, Sherry, and taking a look at your books. You have such an amazing amount, such a huge body of work. And then I was reading that you've done over 55,000 readings. First of all, how do you find the time and write 11 books? But my question really is for those watching and listening, what is Sherry's experience of doing a session and connecting with somebody that's deceased? So for somebody who wants to have that kind of experience but never has, can you give us a little insight from your mind's eye of what that's like to connect with somebody that's now no longer in a physical body? Let's just jump right into the deep end of the pool.
Sure. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for the question. Um, you know, it's a funny question in a way because I'm not sure always how other people are experiencing what I'm experiencing. Um, and I think everybody has a different kind of experience with their loved one. I'll tell you my experience and then what I assume other people are generally experiencing, but you know, not 100% always aware of that end of it. What I'm experiencing is at first, I got to get the right person. So it's almost for me more of a really intense focus to make sure that, I take the responsibility of being the intermediary between a loved one and their, between the spirit loved one and the physical loved one. And so I really want to get it right for them. So initially, what happens for me is I hone in normally on what they look like, just to kind of pull them in stronger on the other side. And sometimes quite often I'll describe what they look like. Sometimes they're funny. Those on the other side, they'll describe, um, oh, I'm the one with the great head of hair. I always had great hair. People noticed my hair, or something kind of silly like that. And then normally I like to, every medium works somewhat differently. I like to look at the session as somewhat of a healing session. So I tend to kind of get into the depth of the relationship, the love. If there's anything this loved one on the other side wants to share that they've learned since they passed over about their relationship with the person I'm working with, I share that. Um, it's sometimes the connection is in the very small subtleties of it, words they would say that they would have said here, or perceptions, little tiny things about, you know, um, what they loved about their loved one, or different things they've done with them. My feeling is that the person receiving this information, they tend to be very listening very intently. And I know I'm doing my job when there's an emotional reaction. When my client is either, there's tears, or there is a quietness where I can really feel like they're really feeling on a deep level. So it's a little different, but generally that's kind of how it goes when I communicate with the other side.
And And is it for you personally, is it mostly impressions, visions, words, feelings, all of them put together?
Generally, yes. Sometimes those on the other side will well, everybody has their own way of coming in subtle ways. Some will be more visual with me. They'll show me things. I'll see them clearly. Others won't. I don't get a lot of images. It's more feeling level. Um, some are quiet. This morning, I did a few readings and I had a father come in with for his daughter, who was my client, and he was real quiet at first. He did show me that he looked like his daughter, and I got at first a very strong visual, and then after that, he kind of pulled back. Um, and that was part of whenever that happens, I know that there's usually something they want to bring up that's hard for them to bring up. But it really varies. I would say all of the above, and sometimes, usually, they have a stronger modality, whether it's visual, I see things, images, they're showing me that, feelings, or um, some will talk and talk and talk, just it's more auditory. So it's a bit of mix of everything.
That's so fascinating. And so are you saying, or do you think that when somebody comes through the mode that you experience them through has something to do with the way they communicate? So if someone's a talker, you're going to hear a lot of talking. If they're a feeler, you're going to feel them more. Is that part of the dynamic?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Their personality tends to come through pretty strong like that.
That's so interesting. So if somebody's like a total non-talker, you might just end up feeling their feelings and describing that. And so you mentioned, for example, sometimes somebody might like step back when there's something difficult to communicate. So what I'm hearing is that you've kind of created a system for yourself, like when somebody steps back, there's something hard. Maybe there are other signs that happen in a reading. Did you learn that somewhere, or did it just come about from your own experience from doing a lot of readings? Like, oh, I know when somebody raises their hand, they have a question, so whatever it happens to be.
Oh, definitely. I tell people that sometimes it's usually true when I think about it. I talk to more dead people in the day than I do people in the physical, you know. And when you speak to that many people on the other side, yeah, there's certain things I can tell pretty quickly. I just feel them. And that's the harder part for me, is putting what I get into words. That it's hard sometimes to describe a presence and a feeling that I'm getting. And that's where I struggle more. And I think a lot of mediums likely, I'm not sure, but um, it's the essence I can feel them, but I can't always put that in words adequately. And it absolutely, there's certain, I just know because I've done so much of it. But I think it'd be kind of hard to teach. I think you probably could some though. And I've taught some of that, but it is definitely a direct experience.
And so did you learn this somewhere? Did you go to school for it? Did you have it as a child naturally?
Um, here's another thing I always tell people when they ask me, and this is somewhat true, is it was kind of the one thing I was good at. I really wasn't good at a lot. I didn't have a real sense of, oh, I want to be this, I want to be that. Oh yeah, I got a real strong interest there. I was kind of one of those kids that was absorbed more with being outside. And um, yeah, from a young age, I have a sister who passed over before I was born, and I always felt I could feel her, see her, and I felt like she was my sister, and we're going to do this together. And um, at the time, it felt real, but kind of imaginary at the same time. It was just something that, I don't know, seemed very normal and natural to me. So I don't know if that has to do with it, that I became very comfortable with the idea of, um, I always had that sense that there were others around us, with us. So it wasn't something that was odd or unnatural. It was very natural. And I was good at it. So I started doing it.
That's fascinating. So when Sherry was a kid, she wasn't like, I'm going to be a firefighter or a doctor or a lawyer. No, I'm going to talk to dead people. That's, I think, a pretty unique experience, but I'm sure that you're not alone. I'm sure there are people watching, listening who are like, and I kind of had that sense too. But for most of us, there's not like a path. You don't go get to high school, college, and go, all right, now I'm going to be a medium. So that would be cool if there was, like, you sign up to be a medium, that's going to be your major. So, how did you end up actually stepping into it as a profession?
What's interesting is we don't do that. We don't go to college to be a medium or think when I grow up, I'll be a medium. But there's a midlife somewhere around, I want to say, although it's getting a younger age now, I've been doing this for a long time. And you were maybe, I don't know, I want to say maybe 35, 40, 45, maybe 50, I don't know, somewhere in that range. There are a lot of people who have been in professions, uh, whether that's accountant or social worker, whatever it might be, who decide I want to be a medium, who really feel I'm ready to step into more of who I am. And it's, I want to say within the last 7 years, 8 years, somewhere around there, it's become really much more accepted to, uh, have that aspiration than it ever had in my career. So that's a really good thing. I think that, we're really evolving in that way. And the people who tend to want to go into this work more, in my experience, are people that have been very good at their professions. They have excelled, they've done very well, and they approach learning how to connect and communicate with the other side with that same devotion, dedication, and desire to learn, and it's great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I started an intuitive development school like 8-ish years ago and noticed that shift too. I ran a physical school in Hawaii for years. It was always very like small and quiet and secret. I was like, you're either in the club or you're not in the club. And then something definitely did shift. And I'm sure your books are part of that shift because when somebody walks into a bookstore and they see you are a psychic, right in the front and everyone's picking it up and reading, going, oh, okay, maybe I am. That's not as big of a deal as I thought. It starts to change the collective consciousness around that idea. So touche to you for, being out there and not hiding in a bubble like I did in Hawaii. So you grow up, you start doing this kind of work, and then clearly you've been prolific, having done over 55,000 readings. I think everybody probably wants to know, like, is there, I'm sure there are many, but can you share an experience or two of doing a reading that really shifted you or made you realize, wow, this is so real. This is so impactful.
Good question. That's a very good question. I think, that happened right at the beginning, right at the beginning. I almost want to say the very first experience I had being pushed to share with someone I didn't know what I was doing was highly impactful. And that was, I was on a bus in Santa Clara, California. I was young. I was probably 19, I think. And there was a man sitting next to me in a suit. And I kept seeing a woman with dark hair. I'll never forget that because it was very powerful for me. And she kept holding her heart and saying, tell him, tell him, tell him, tell him I'm okay. I'm here. I love him. Tell him. And I could just feel, and I knew that she had passed over with a heart problem or a heart attack because she kept, please tell him. And she wouldn't stop doing this. She wouldn't. And I just felt like, gosh, I have to do this. So I said to him something like, I forget, but just to open conversation, where are you going or something, and he just kind of looked at me and didn't say much. And I thought, okay, I got to tell him. I said, do you know a woman with long, dark black hair and I think she may be your mother? Well, she loves you and she's with you and she's okay. And he started crying and he said, I'm on her way to her funeral right now. And I thought, okay. I got okay. And I just got out the bus as fast as I could. I literally pulled the thing and got off the bus. Um, but that's what convinced me because I had been debating. I don't want to really, I was doing readings for friends or family members, but I thought, okay, they're not going to leave me alone. I better go ahead and do this. They're going to just follow me wherever I go.
Wow. Pause for a moment for all of us listening and just have goosebumps. That's an incredible story. I mean, if I was in his shoes and someone had done that to me and I was on the way to that funeral, that would be life-changing forever. I mean, the the change in my approach to grief and loss would shift right there, knowing that that the person is still there. Because I think the most painful part of death is believing that we lost somebody. And correct me if I'm wrong, but often it's the medium's job to help people see that you haven't lost a person. They're right there. They just don't have a physical body. So, wow, what an amazing story. So this happens, and then you're like, okay, I guess I can do this for a living. And um, has there been an evolution in how you do readings and how you experience this over time? Are there things that you can give us the Cliff Notes version of, okay, I've been doing this 35 years. This is what I would avoid. This is what I should have avoided. This is what I learned the hard way.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I've learned, because when anybody starts this, it's always like jumping off a cliff because you just don't know. Someone's either sitting in front of you, whether it's on Zoom or on the phone or in person, and they are in grief. There's a real desire and need they feel and have to heal, to connect, to know that their loved one. And it's such a sacred duty to be the one who is going to help facilitate that. And that's one of the things I would really impress upon people is that it is a sacred duty, that it is something that you have to go into knowing that you can open a door for someone for an incredible connection and healing. And if you focus on that being what you're doing, as opposed to, I don't know how to put it, but sometimes I've seen this with students, and I know myself too, I was susceptible at times to wanting more attention for it. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but geez, I'm doing a great job, aren't I? Like I'm real good at this. Kind of, you know what it is? It's kind of feeling that this is a place of power and that you can take advantage of that power. Unconsciously, I don't think anybody goes into it to take advantage of the power they have, but the ego is a strong thing and it happens. It happens subtly. And I always try to minimize myself when I do readings. I try to minimize myself because sometimes I remember at the beginning, I had to fight this because I could feel myself wanting to get involved in it. I could feel my ego wanting somehow to say certain things or to put myself in the equation further. And I really had to discipline myself to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pull back. My job is to interpret the energy I receive, and that's my job. And I'm going to do that the best I can. And I'm not the center of attention here. because being a medium is definitely an ego temptation to feel the power you have. And it always will get you in trouble. You will lose the connection. You will not be effective. And that's the and again, it's not anybody, no one does this, no one goes into it, but for that purpose or reason. I guess maybe some people might, but it's very, very rare. Um, but it happens. It happens to the best of people. And it can really, oh gosh, there's so much abuse, to be honest with you. There's a lot of abuse in the spiritual community. And again, not intentional, but it's there. And I think we have to be conscious of that. And I'm very, very disciplined with my students. I think they're surprised how disciplined I am with them because I will not put up with anything.
So
Because
when you
I've seen it. I've been there. I've seen in classes where people have abused other students too by telling them things that were not, misinterpreting it. Their interpretation is too ego based. And you hit a spot with me on that because I'm very conscious of that. And especially as a teacher, because it's a very powerful place to be. And I've seen people will still come to me and they'll say to me, well, this medium told me this. Things that, why would you tell someone that? Your father, your mother, your loved one, or your child is stuck out in um, space or something. Yeah, something that, no. Anyway, yeah. So I would definitely say pull back the reins. They're going to come up and you got to tame that ego in this work.
really, thank you for the very candid answer and great insight. I couldn't agree with you more. And I do a whole section in my training about how to appropriately communicate and not program people and make sure you're always telling them what's in their best interest. And part of doing a reading is learning to recognize what communication is relevant and necessary and what isn't, and having a healthy filter for that. Because I had a student once who came to me. She was crying and she was like, I went to a psychic and he told me I won't meet my partner for 5 years. And she was just like in tears. And I remember telling her, that's just not true. I would let that go. And I think inside of that year, she met somebody and had 3 babies. And it was just this very negative impact that that person had on her by saying something like that. So the world is full of that out there. And I think it gives this whole space a really bad rap. And I feel like as part of my job, I'm sure you feel the same, clearing that up and making it a space full of integrity and a space that's grounded. So when you have students come in for this training, can you walk us through that a bit? How like how long is a training to do this kind of work? Do they learn certain tools and techniques? Do they have to do a lot of readings?
Um, it's an ongoing process. It's something that there's not. I guess at some point you can feel confident and give a reading in a way that is in someone's highest good, and you're really interpreting, connecting with energy, and you're really on track with it. But I still learn so much. I still learn every day. I'm still kind of in awe sometimes. And sometimes people will say things from the other side. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. Really? It kind of surprises me. And I love that. I love that I can still learn so much about this. And even when I work with, students, I learn a lot too. Um, Normally it's an interesting thing in because I've taught for a long time. And what I found actually is the hardest thing to learn, the hardest hurdle for people is the interpretation of energy. We all receive energy all the time. We all have a relationship with energy. We don't know we do, but we do. I mean, we know it only through the tangible physical world. We can recognize we have a relationship through the things, the people, all of that. But we also have a relationship with the unseen too. And we absorb energy. We absorb other people's energy. We emit energy. And so that part is actually more natural than people realize. That's not hard. I know people put an obstacle up thinking, oh, it's way over there, the other side. I can't get there. But you can't, believe it or not, there is no really other side. It's really just a matter of vibration and our ability, again, to read and interpret. It's like learning another language in a way. Um, and so the harder part is not the receiving, it's really the interpreting what you receive. And so I tend to, and the only way you can really do that is to do a lot of medium work is really practice work. It's really practicing interpreting, receiving, and expressing. And that's why it can be tricky too, because yeah, you just have to, it's not like a classroom, and I'm sure you experience this some in meditation, teaching meditation too, that you can't really talk about meditation. You have to experience it. I'm sure you experience that with your students too. And you can't really tell them too much because they have to feel it within themselves and come to their own, place within that it's happening there. It's happening there. It's the same thing with this training. It's happening within. So I tend to want classes that are more intimate for that reason, that I can spend more time with people, that I can really feel their energy. They can feel mine. I can ramp them up a little bit because I've just done this enough that I know I can project energy. So they can have an experience and I can kind of be in the experience with them a little bit more myself so I can feel what they're feeling. And I do that in the mentoring is I kind of really get into it with where are you, what's happening. It's enjoyable, it's fun, and it can be exhausting too. I mean, working with energy can be exhausting.
Yeah, I always say that learning to do intuitive readings is one of the most awkward things you can do because you're closing your eyes and you're looking into somebody else. And in the beginning stages, there's a lot of stage fright and energy to get through to be able to have the confidence to say what you see. I had a student once, it was her first few reading, third or fourth reading, I think, and she had a guy come in, sit down, stoic and quiet. And she said, I see a very clear image of a phoenix coming out of the ashes and and in context to something in his life. And he pulls up his pant leg and he's got this huge tattoo of a phoenix coming out of the ashes. And she was so validated. And I remember her saying, I almost didn't say that because I was so scared. I was like, well, that random image isn't gonna mean anything. But then when she did and she got that feedback, it was really great for her to continue on with her practice. So I don't know about you, but and your students, but for me and mine, I definitely have noticed the beginning stages are tough and awkward, and they need a lot of nurturing and cheerleading. You could do this, keep going, and it's just like anything in life. You do it 1,000 times over, and you just get better and better and better at it. It's that the beginning on ramp is the really tricky part, is what I found. So students come in, they learn these tools from you. Some of them obviously go on to be professionals. Others maybe they just use it for themselves. Um, and you're essentially creating a whole world out there of people who now have mediumship skills. Do you have an overarching goal of you just want a lot of people out there to know that the deceased still exist, that they communicate with us, that we have the ability for us to communicate? Do you have kind of like a bigger vision in all of your teachings of what you want to impact the world with before one day we all will be on that side going, hey?
Um, yeah, that's a great question. A couple of things. One, the first would be when it comes to the medium work specifically, it would be that, and this is what I wrote about in my last book, I'm Still With You. It's an opportunity when we can connect with a loved one, our own loved one, or we can facilitate someone else connecting. It's an opportunity for continuing our journey with them, for continuing our healing with them, My feeling is that the more we embrace our loved ones on the other side and do the necessary, whatever that is, clearing of ourselves, whatever there's forgiveness that needs to happen, or there's something we're holding on to that we felt diminished with, whatever it is, whatever the process is for that healing. Once we do that, I feel like our loved ones on the other side and the spirit realm in general, I feel are meant to be more an integral part of our lives here in the physical world. I feel that at this juncture, as we move forward in our evolution, I feel it's a necessity. I feel that the vibration that we can bring in from that higher spiritual plane is necessary for our humanness. I think it's time that happens. I feel like when there was more consciousness of spirit, when we look at indigenous people, there was more reverence for the earth. There was more reverence for that part of us, because that is a part of us. It's not somewhere else. It's a part of our consciousness. Our consciousness is part of the spirit realm. We are part of the spirit realm. We're just a deeper vibration. That just makes us physical, but it's a part of who we are. So when we reach that level of connection with the other side, what we're essentially also doing, and this happens through medium work, it happens through intuitive work, psychic work, is that we're reaching a higher level of vibration within ourselves when we're doing it really authentically. And that is necessary. And it's not just necessary to make us feel good. It's necessary for us to thrive as a human race here on the physical. It's been too long that we've separated ourselves from spirit, integral into our day-to-day lives. That's my bigger platform.
Note to self, ask Sherry Diller deep probing questions and you will get great answers. Thank you for that. I haven't heard anyone put it quite that way, to that you think we should be drawing the deceased in closer to our day-to-day lives, which seems, when you say it, so obvious. If you look at the Native Americans or so many other groups that have walked the earth before us and still do, they do live with the ancestrals around them. Like in Hawaii, it's very much part of the culture. And we kind of are like, all right, when you die, you go to the burial ground and I'll visit you once a year at the cemetery, right? Excuse me, at the cemetery. And that's it. But drawing them in and having them as your guides and your friends, and you're continuing to be your loved ones and having a relationship with the non-physical and physical at the same time is, yeah, that's a profound way to look at it. Can we go just a little bit deeper with that? So if I was to step into that and start to communicate with the deceased, how would I bring them into my life? Do I ask them for advice, for guidance, for healing? Are they there just to be my, continued friend? And how has that shown up in your life?
Yeah, like I said, I really try to impress upon people the beginning step of the healing process with the other side. Now, let's say that we've done that. Let's say that we have someone that we did that before they passed over. My feeling is it depends on the relationship to a certain extent and how evolved our loved ones are on the other side too, because there's so many different levels in the spirit realm, just as there is in the human world. I tell people that, we're all on different consciousness levels here on planet Earth. It's kind of even more so on the other side. There's so many levels. There's so much, some pass over and they hold on to the physical energy and they create little houses and they live somewhat similarly. And then others decide, oh gosh, I'm going to go just float with light and go to that different planet and really enjoy learning all of this other creative energy. But that's okay, because that tends to correspond with the family unit too. The family unit tends to be somewhat the same consciousness. So we can learn no matter what consciousness level we're on and what level they're on. Everything you said, I agree with, though. Invite them in. we can say, "What do you think about that? What do you?" I mean, it's kind of funny, but um, they tend to have a lot of opinions about our day to day life, um, and then I think things evolve from there. I feel like just that connection starts to, like I said, it triggers, it opens. There's a portal that opens within us with that. And so it becomes less about that particular relationship with a loved one, and it becomes more about, and that's where the ancestral energy comes in, because it becomes more about the energy of the family line, the ancestor. What was that family line learning? What is the energy there that I in the physical can start healing and imprint differently in the physical path too? So there's so many levels of healing, um, consciousness evolution that we can experience once we open that door. And the other thing is that they tend to guide it too, which is nice. Maybe not just a loved one. We may have a spirit guide or a higher being, angelic, or whatever that might be, but they will also guide because they know our bigger soul path too. So it invites a lot in when we open ourselves.
The way, Sherry, the way you describe being dead or deceased sounds awesome. I could build myself a house or I can travel across the universe. Wow, this doesn't sound so bad. I have one more deep, probing question, and I don't know if I'm phrasing it right, but why do we die? Why do we experience death from both sides? From speaking to so many people on the other side, have you gotten insight into why we have to have this human experience? I think this is the most universal experience, loving someone and then losing someone. And it's inevitable. Either they go first or you do. And there's pain around that. Have you found some insight into why that is our experience?
I have, but I don't think I fully know. I feel like that's one of the things I'm still learning, and I learn a lot about it. I can tell you kind of what I've learned, but I know I don't have it completely. In my experience with the other side, what they tell me loved ones is, and I don't know the ultimate though. It frustrates me a little bit that I don't know. I want to know more. But what they tell me though is that it's an opportunity for more of an acceleration in our soul growth. That we have such a contrast here in the physical, and we reap the repercussions or the benefit of our thoughts and actions more at a more deeper feeling level than we do anyplace else. So that gives us the opportunity to correct ourselves, to grow, to heal. And it's a much faster pace than we realize here, than that our growth is. We tend to I mean, it can feel so long a life, especially if we're having difficulties. It can feel, um, why is this happening? And why am I not happier? But see, all of those questions is what drives our acceleration. That, on this physical planet, we have this sense that we can get someplace else if we, well, once we're beyond blaming other people and, thinking we just got a raw deal here, which of course we all have to go through that, and that's a level. But once we get through that, we do have this sense that, okay, well, what can I do? How can I change things? I feel that, and again, I don't think I've got it completely, but that seems to be an overriding purpose to be here, is so we can claim our power and we can evolve and change and learn what truly, is ultimately going to put us in that beautiful, blissful, loving place. But it is something I still want to know.
Mm, well, I appreciate your humility around that answer, because I feel the same way. Uh, I like the part of where you said that maybe the growth is accelerated here because we can feel more in a physical form. Maybe that's why it's all feel so much love, but also so much pain. Ah, life, huh, Sherry? And pardon the pun, but we have to end here. Just for now, it's not over. But I would love for you to just share where everyone can find you and learn more about your work.
Well, everybody is welcome to check out my website, sherrydillard.com. It's SHERRIEDILLARD. I have a blog, sherrydillard.me, and those would be the best avenues.
In your books. And do you still you said you did 2 readings this morning, so you still do readings?
I'm taking limited, but I am still doing readings. Yes, I love doing readings. I will probably do readings for as long as I can do them.
Wow. Does it ever tire you out?
It's exhausting.
You're like, "Yes, so if you call me, be gentle." That's amazing. So if you're watching, wow, how lucky would you be to have a reading with Sherry? That's so cool. Well, Sherry, thank you so, so much for your time. Could have went a couple more hours on some of those deep topics we just touched on, but I really appreciate all your wisdom and insight into the other realms of reality. And I feel like I'm still marinating some of what you just said. So I'll just probably sit here for a while and stare at the wall and absorb it. Thank you for being here, Sherry. Thanks everyone for listening and watching with us.
Thank you so much. I loved the interview. It was great. Thank you for the compliments too. Appreciate that.